In most of my interviews, they were asking me what my time would be, and I just told them I was gonna run real fast. So I went out there, and my adrenaline was going. So once I got on the line, I knew I was gonna run pretty good. Once I got back to my phone, Brent Calloway, that's the guy I trained with in Dallas at Exos, he told me to take my cleats off. So when he said that, I knew it was pretty good. So
Yeah, nothing left to prove after you run a 4.29. The Field Talk podcast is brought to you by Roback, RHOBACK.com. That's where you can find all of the great gear. And I'm talking head to toe. If you're listening to this just after it goes live, it's the springtime. And you know what that means? New arrivals over on Roback.com. If you golf, plenty of new polos, quarter zips, anything that you need to get you through 18 holes, on top of hopefully some good putting. Head on over to Roback.com and enter my name, Field, Field, for 20% off your first order. Best fit, best feel, Roback.com, the place for all of your attire needs. I have a feeling that today's episode of the Field Talk podcast might be the fastest one we've done yet. I don't mean that in terms of time. Hopefully, it's a lengthy conversation, but Matthew Golden, Texas star wide receiver, recently ran a 4.2940 at the combine, the second fastest of any player at the event and the fastest of any offensive player. It's sort of emblematic of the way that Matthew Golden's NFL stock has risen throughout the past year. As Matthew had just a wonderful season for the Longhorns after 2 years with the Houston Cougars. He's a name that is going to become more and more familiar to football fans in very short order, as he will become a Sunday starter this fall. But to find out more about where Matthew Golden has been up to this point, he joined us here on today's edition of the Field Talk podcast. And it's great to be joined now by Matt Golden, star receiver from first Houston, and then this past season finished up his collegiate days at University of Texas. And Matt, it's been kind of a whirlwind pre-draft process for you. When you see someone on the street that might recognize you, do they ask you to run a 40 against them?
hey, some of them do, man. Most of them do actually. Most of them do actually, man.
I feel like what you should do is you should volunteer. Like you should wear a sign that says like "race against me" and tell the people that if they lose, they got to pay you $25. You'd be an overnight billionaire.
Hey, I make money in my sleep, man.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about necessarily starting here, but you know what? Let's just get it out of the way because I'm sure you're asked about it a lot. Going into the combine, a couple of your teammates talked about some of the numbers they had in mind for running the 40? Going into the combine yourself, did you have an idea in mind of what you wanted to run or what you expected to run in the 40?
I just went in knowing or thinking to myself that I wanted to run something fast. And in most of my interviews, they were asking me what my time would be, and I just told them I was gonna run real fast. So uh, I went out there, and my adrenaline was going. So once I got on the line, I knew I was gonna run pretty good.
Once you ran, because I was watching from the stands, and they didn't have anything like up on the video scoreboard that showed us how fast you guys actually were running. How quickly did you get? Was it relayed to you that I think they were initially had you at a 4.30 unofficial, and then they got the official time at 4.29? How quickly did you understand that you had just run what ended up being the fastest time for any offensive player at the combine?
Yeah. So once I got back to my phone, Brent Calloway, that's the guy I trained with in Dallas at Exos. He told me to take my cleats off. So when he said that, I knew it was pretty good. So
Yeah, nothing left to prove after you run a 4.29. All right, so that's sort of one of the more recent points in your journey. But I want to ask you sort of about how you got to where you are right now. You're a Houston kid, you're Texas through and through. At what point did you know when you're growing up, like maybe I have a chance to become a high level football player? Because in Texas, unlike in Massachusetts, where I come from, there are great football players all over the place. When did you know maybe you're a little bit different?
I would just say just going through high school, the competition that we had here. Uh, we got a lot of high level recruits out of Houston. So, just being able to compete with guys like that. And then, taking my talents to Houston, playing there for 2 years, it was great for me. And then given the opportunity to play at the University of Texas.
When you were thinking about the college process coming out from the area of Houston, was there like pressure to stay home, or was there a desire to maybe get away when you're going through that recruiting process? How did you land with the Cougars initially?
Just the relationship I had with Coach Hogerson and my position coach, Coach Shorts. They did a good job of, making me feel at home, and it didn't feel any better than that. So I feel good with my decision.
Do you remember the first time that you had a college recruiter come see you at the high school level? And if so, what might that have been like? What's a Friday night in Texas football like for those of us that haven't experienced it before?
No, it's pretty cool. It's a good atmosphere to play in. As far as when a recruiter first came and seen me, that was I want to say that was around my sophomore year. So, that was when my offers started to pick up for me a little bit, and I just started to realize what was happening for me. And once I felt like everything was about to get going for me, I just let it happen by itself.
So you end up at Houston for a couple of years, and then you finish up this past season. So you play 3 college seasons in total at University of Texas. When you're evaluating the possibility, which in college is now an every year thing, do I stay? Do I go somewhere? It's a different landscape compared to where we were a decade ago. What was the process like to decide to finish up your college career at Texas?
I always told myself I wanted to finish my last year playing in the SEC, and definitely playing at Texas. It was a dream come true. Just the campus and just the people down there in general. It's a great place to be. So, being able to play for Coach Sark and then my position coach, Coach Jackson. They really helped me and molded my game. So, getting the opportunity to play there, man, it was a blessing for me.
There's a chance that wherever you end up in the NFL, which is gonna be really high in the draft, by the way, that like your home crowds might be smaller than the crowds at Texas. Like it's like a professional football team down there. What would you describe, whether it was the first game you played at Texas or the biggest or the best game you played? What's a game day like down at Texas Stadium? Again, for those of us who, a big high school football crowd in my parts is like 500 people.
Man, great atmosphere. Every game was packed. So you playing in front of thousands of people. Uh, And they just show a lot of love to you. So, they make you feel at home. They made me feel at home. And they took me in with open arms, and it was just cool to play in an atmosphere like that.
When you think about the SEC, is there a school that you went and visited on the road this year that maybe because you'd only seen it on TV, you didn't know exactly the kind of atmosphere it was that really stands out to you when you think back about some of the places you went and played against this past year?
I would definitely say the Aggies. That was a good atmosphere to play in, man. It was the crowd, just the energy of the game, how it was going for us. It was loud, and it was just something fun to play in.
So you guys end up having this awesome year, but when you transfer to Texas, it's Texas, so every year you guys are going to lose guys to the draft. But you had a first round pick in Xavier Worthy, second round pick in AD Mitchell, sixth round pick in Jordan Whittington, all coming from the receiver room. What was your mentality? What was the collective mentality of that Texas wide receiver room coming into this past season?
Just knowing that we all had to come in and compete, we all that's the way we took it, and so we push each other each and every day to put our best foot forward. So being in a room like that, it allows you to reach your potential and just go out there and play fast. So having confidence in each other and then pushing each other to be great, it was a good thing for that room.
I'm gonna give you, I guess this would be 3 words, and I'm just gonna tee them up and let you respond to them however you see fit. Hopefully, this makes sense. But when I say fourth and 13, what comes to mind?
Clutch. I mean, that was just a clutch play, man. That was my biggest play of my college career. And I feel like everything, our back was against the wall when that happened. So just knowing that we had to come out on top on that play, and just the way it happened, it was, man, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Did I hear this correct? That, and for those that don't know, Texas facing a fourth and 13 in the college football playoff against Iowa State. Matt comes down with a huge, huge catch. Texas, of course, goes on to win this game. Did I hear correctly that maybe Quinn like either audibled in the like at the line?
Yeah, he put the O lineman in max protection because they were about to blitz. So he put him in max protection, and then we had a good play on, and I mean, we had to go get the ball. So
It worked out
yeah,
brilliantly for you, and
nah,
it forever etched in Texas lore as a result of that. What was it like being a part of the first ever 12-team college football playoff for you?
it was definitely a cool experience. It allows you to just put more on display. It allows you to play more games and just go out there and show people what you can do. Uh, and as far as like just our team in general, we put a lot of work in to be in that position, and it really didn't affect us as much. We just took it one game at a time.
Yeah, and it just was such an interesting dynamic, not just because of the fact that there were more teams, but also the first playoff game, of course, was played at your own home field, right? Like you guys aren't playing on neutral sites in that round of 12. I know that every week matters for Texas football, but was there a different energy in the 12th, in that first round of the 12-team playoff? You guys, Clemson, two power programs with huge history and tradition. Did it feel at all different because of the stakes that were in that game?
It kind of did, but getting that home field advantage, it played a big role for us, especially having that game at home. So, just having the fans around us and just knowing that we're back at home, we just treated it like a regular home game.
You finished really strong. Two out of your last four games for Texas, you had at least 149 receiving yards. Did something happen as the season wore on? Did you grow in terms of your chemistry with Quinn Ewers? Did you just feel more comfortable that you think contributed to those huge, huge games down the stretch?
Yeah, I would just say, our confidence just started to click. It was only a matter of time. So, just waiting for that opportunity to come and then just taking off with it. So I feel like for us, just knowing Quinn as a person and then him knowing me, it allowed things for like on field to, happen for us.
So I want to ask about the life of being an NFL prospect for now, because
Yeah.
obviously the draft is around the corner. What is a day in the life like as you get ready for the draft? The combine is behind us. You don't have to worry about your starts in the 40-yard dash, or what cleats you're going to wear, or what combine apparel you're going to go with. What's a normal day like for you at this point leading into the draft?
Just Monday through Friday. So, I just wake up in the morning, I get a workout in around 10, uh, come back and then get treatment. So, I get in cryotherapy or I get in the cold tub and then I get another workout in at 2:30. I do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Wednesday and Thursday. Them are my off days. So just trying to get my body back, but try to still stay in shape.
Is it? I don't know how much. I feel like if I were in your shoes, I'd be the person that would be guilty of reading every mock draft imaginable. Do you ever find yourself going down that rabbit hole of reading mock drafts and figuring out where Matt Golden stacks in the mind of those who are sort of football forecasters?
I got an uncle and I got a little brother, so they send it to me. But other than that, I try to just let that be. So I'm not really like worried or just trying to think about where I'm going. Uh, I let them do that. But I just stay focused, man.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. I think you'd find yourself putting a lot of energy if you followed every single mock draft along the way. Uh, as you're training, are you training with fellow draft prospects to help you get ready for the draft as well? What is sort of the group you're with like right now? You mentioned XO, so someone you had been a group you had been training with previously.
So no, I'm back at home in Houston. I train with this receiver trainer named Devontae. He trained a lot of the top guys in the NFL. So just getting that experience. I actually worked out with Calvin Austin a couple of days ago. So just being around him, trying to get as much knowledge as I can from him. It's helping me a lot.
I feel like this is a question you got to ask a draft prospect who went to the combine. What is there training for the interviews that you're going to have with teams, or what is the process like? And was it comfortable? Was it uncomfortable meeting with
Yeah.
teams? Are there certain things everybody wanted to know? Did you get asked all kinds of weird questions? What were those interviews like for you?
My first interview was with the Bills, so it was, I was nervous a little bit just because I didn't know what to expect. But as far as the interviews went, they were all good. They tried to get to know me as a player. Not more so about football. We started talking football, but just being in the meetings and then just being able to get around those coaches. It was a cool experience.
As you think about the next chapter in your career, I'm sure there are some players that you'd like to have the same success as Matt. But is there a player that you either grew up watching or that is currently playing that you've tried to kind of model a little bit of your game after?
I watch a lot of Justin Jefferson. Just with his ability to get open and his release game. And Jamar Chase for his ability to make a lot of contested catches. So I try to model my game after them, and just try to get a lot from their aspects of the game.
Is there a team that you grew up rooting for? I mean, were you a Texans fan growing up in Houston? I know they were. Yeah, they're probably just getting started when you were born, right?
And I definitely watched them. When they had Andre Johnson. So I grew up watching the Texans when I was young.
So, does that mean that, like, in your perfect world, you'd find a way for the Houston Texans to draft you, go pair up with Nico Collins, or is that one of those situations now where you're just open to all 32 and you'll take whatever comes your way?
Definitely take whatever comes my way. Just being able to have the opportunity to go to the next level.
So over the next handful of weeks here, you've got things like your pro day. If you participate in that, you've got visits with teams potentially as well. Is it hard to kind of keep track of like what the like football training commitment is right now? Because despite the fact that you've got to go on these visits and do the pro day, like the most important part is you're still training to play football again in less than 6 months. Is it hard to keep a regimen at this time of the year, or how do you keep the calendar on track?
Yeah. So I got a lot of good people around me that help me keep my schedule on. So just for me, keeping my body good and just maintaining the workouts, being able to go out there and still be good at that, and just knowing what I got to do outside of football. So when it comes to that, my schedule is pretty good. I feel like.
All right. So we started this by asking about the 40-yard dash, 4.29, second fastest at the entire combine, fastest amongst all offensive players. So I'm thinking the appropriate way to wrap this up is to ask you questions looking for quick hitting, fast answers from you. So they don't have to be super long, maybe a couple of words. We'll start here. Uh, if you were to race Xavier Worthy, and I know what his 40 time was, but let's say it's 100 yards as opposed to 40 yards. Texas wide receiver the year before you. Who's winning that race?
Worthy gonna win. I'm gonna give it
Oh,
to him. Yeah, he'll win. I give it to him.
you know what? I respect the honesty. A lot of
Yeah.
people would just pick their own stuff. But, we're talking about like, generationally fast versus
Yeah. Nah.
generationally fast.
Definitely.
Uh, a defensive back that you played in college that earned your respect.
I would say Will Johnson. Yeah, I say Will Johnson.
Will Johnson, who, like you, going to be drafted very early in this year's class as well. If there is a favorite football memory of yours, whether it's growing up, high school, college, what would it be?
The 13.
Fourth and 13.
Yeah.
One of those going to be go remember forever.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there a quarterback that's not playing anymore? Because I'm not trying to influence you to want to play for a certain team, but if there's a quarterback that has played and retired that you would have loved to catch a pass from, who would it be?
Probably Tom Brady. Probably Tom
Can't blame
Brady.
me
Yeah.
on that. Yeah, that's a pretty good answer right there.
Yeah.
Uh, and then this one, go as long as you want. If you were to kind of summarize your football journey, the lessons you've learned along the way, and the things that have helped get you to where you are now, what might be some of the biggest takeaways?
Just battling adversity and being able to, stay level through all of it. Being committed to the process. Obviously, and just when you don't get the results that you want, so always tell yourself to keep going. So for me, just always approaching it with a chip on my shoulder, like I always got something to prove, and just letting the rest unfold by itself.
Well, Matt Golden, Texas wide receiver by way of Houston, not just as a hometown, but also where he started his college football career. We appreciate you very much for joining us here. And as I said earlier, I can't wait to watch you on Sundays somewhere. One thing I do know is wherever it is, you'll be running very, very fast. Best of luck, man.
Nah, definitely. I appreciate y'all.
Great to catch up with Matt Golden. And by the time that you're watching this, who knows? Maybe Matt Golden is already playing for your favorite NFL team. But it's cool to hear about how his journey from Houston to Austin to wherever he lands in the NFL has been one that has been filled with clearly a lot of composure and dedication. If you enjoyed this episode of the Field Talk podcast, please make sure to drop us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast. Or, of course, you can subscribe on the YouTube page. And as always, a big thank you to Roback for helping to support and make this show happen. That's Roback, RHOBACK. Head on over to roback.com and enter the code FIELD, my first name, for 20% off your first order. Until next time, we'll talk to you all soon.